people always want to read stories about successful actors,
Yeah, right.
Marilyn Monroe, or famous people. How
Right.
did they get started? What's their life story?
Right.
But I realized as a working actor myself
Mhm, mhm.
that for every actor that has a book like that, there's 100 or more actors that didn't get there, you know? So I said,
Right.
what about nobody's ever written a book about somebody who didn't make it in the classic sense. And there's a lot more of them running around in the world.
Welcome to Story Power, a bi-monthly podcast where my guests and I chat about stories and creativity in all different styles and formats. My name is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden, and my goal is to promote what Dale Carnegie stated in his famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said, instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. That's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. It's my firm belief that the goal of most creative people is to try to understand themselves and others. That's what makes artwork of all kinds so compelling. But more than that, the personal stories of my guests promote understanding as well. Roger C. Schenck, a cognitive scientist, said, human beings are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. It's my hope that Story Power will help us understand each other better by sharing the stories of my guests. Today on Story Power, my guest is David Hern, and it is episode 118. And Dave, I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you, Lucinda. It's great to be with you.
So man, I was looking at your bio, and there are so many great things about what you do. The thing that I loved the most was when you sent me the YouTube link to your commercials for your book. I was laughing out loud at them. They were so fun. So, I want you to tell about your book and the two, maybe even something about the plays that you've
Mhm.
written and your life in Hollywood.
All
So,
right.
I'll let you start wherever you want to start.
Well, the idea behind the book came out of the realization that people always want to read stories about successful actors,
Yeah, right.
Marilyn Monroe, or famous people. How
Right.
did they get started? What's their life story?
Right.
But I realized as a working actor myself
Mhm. Mhm.
that for every actor that has a book like that, there's 100 or more actors that didn't get there, you know? So I said,
Right.
what about nobody's ever written a book about somebody who didn't make it in the classic sense. And there's a lot more of them running around in the world.
Yes,
So
right.
that was I wanted to kind of write a book for the underdog actor, as it were.
And so that's why what's the title of your book?
How not to make it in Hollywood.
Early on when I started Story Power, I had a musician who lives in New York. He plays the bass. He's a rock bass player. And the title of his book was, Am I Famous Yet? And so when I saw How Not to Make It in Hollywood, I thought, oh, that reminds me. Oh my gosh, it was so fun. So,
And then, of course, I've been generating those commercials on my
yes,
own. I'm my own publicity department,
yes,
as it is.
yeah.
So, being a performer and a writer and all the rest of it, I thought, well, that'll be a hell of a lot more fun than having some ad agency or some
Yeah.
independent person to do it. So, I'm bringing my own shtick and
Yeah,
crazy
really.
stuff to the commercials.
Yes, it was fun.
So
Yeah.
far, they're going over great. So,
Oh, that's
I'm happy.
great. That's good because I'm my only employee until my husband retires at the end of June.
Uh-huh.
And he's a graphic artist, fortunately. And so he can help me, with that kind of thing. But I don't have the sense of humor that you do. So I thought it was really fun. Yeah.
Well, everything I write just about comes out comedic. I
Yes.
wrote one semi-serious screenplay a bunch of years ago,
Uh huh.
but that's it. I mean, sometimes even when I'm trying, it's just happens naturally. Everything I write seems to come out with a comic bent to it.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe, and that's just your personality because, oh my gosh, before I married my husband, I was the most serious person, and he has this really great sense of humor and helped me lighten up. But yeah, so it's just who you are. It's just your. Now,
Yeah.
did your screenplay sell?
Well, of course, I talk about that in the book as well,
Oh,
that
good.
some of the exclusionary structures that are in place
Oh, yeah.
for actors, it's the same for writers.
Yeah.
Just like with actors, you need to be in the Screen Actors Guild. Writing, you need to be in the Writers Guild. And,
Yeah.
there's the same structures on the writing end. So it's not any easier or more difficult than acting. It's just about the same.
Yeah.
And I ran into the same difficulty getting people to read my scripts.
Yeah.
So, I just got tired of beating my head against the wall, which is why I left.
Uh-huh.
And in an ironic sort of twist, my career really took off after I left Hollywood.
I love that.
After leaving it, that's when I started that I got an agent here. I got some film and TV work, a lot
Uh-huh.
of stage work, but that probably would not have happened had I just stayed in Hollywood and rotted away.
And so where do you live now?
I live in Oakland, California.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. It's beautiful. I love the Bay Area.
Yeah, it
Very
is
happy
beautiful.
here.
My in-laws used to live in Fremont,
Uh-huh.
and we loved going there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it here.
Yeah.
Uh, the truth is, if I'm really honest with myself,
Mhm.
I didn't really feel like I fit in with Hollywood, even
Mhm.
from the beginning.
Yeah.
I went there with a specific purpose as far as the career goes. But if I'm really honest with myself, there was something I never quite fit in there. It
Mhm.
just was it's a society and a culture that it just, I don't know, I didn't jive with it.
Yeah.
I fit in better up here in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Plus, I had 10 times the opportunities. I did a
Yeah.
lot more theater. I did more work as an actor than
Yeah.
ever before.
Yeah. So, are your plays do you have more than 2 plays now?
Let me see. I've got 3 plays and 3 screenplays.
Oh,
Um, let's see. The furthest I've gotten is one of my stage plays
yeah.
was mounted as a staged reading
Oh,
at
right.
Playhouse West in Walnut Creek.
Yeah.
Um, and it went very well. I remember getting kind of a spark, thinking, "Hey, this may work." Of course, the I didn't have a formal production company to
Right.
mount the production, but the stage reading told me, based on the audience reaction, that it's something worth pursuing. So I haven't given up on that one. It's
Yeah.
still sitting there waiting for somebody to do it.
So, has it been published with one of the pla I can't even.
Plays are kind of different than books.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Plays a lot of the times are fomented and written within a production environment,
Right.
so that the whole process is nurtured through to a production.
Yeah.
In my case, I write full plays, and then either they want to
Yeah.
produce it or they don't.
Right, yeah. Well, I was thinking see, my background's in theater. I was thinking
Mhm.
about, like dramatic what is it? Dramatists or Samuel French or something like that.
Right. That's when you know you've made it. When your plays are being published by the Samuel French
Yeah.
Company.
Yeah.
That's when you're an official playwright.
But yeah, so if you because I one of my colleagues, the guy that took over my class, I'm not teaching theater anymore, but the guy who took over my classes also is very involved in the local community theater. He and another professional, he's a professional theater actor and director. And I was wondering if I told them about your plays, how would they pay your royalties and so on and so forth?
Well, that's always usually negotiated with an agent.
Oh,
You
I see.
Most people have literary agents.
Yeah, right.
I
Yeah.
have a theatrical agent. I don't have representation for literary.
Yeah. Right.
Um, but that's all up in the air because, if you become successful in one front, then
Yeah.
everybody wants you. They approach working actors all the time and say, "Hey, you got any scripts?"
Yeah.
So in my case, I could open a whole drawer full of them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Oh dear. Oh yeah. I have a writer friend who wrote a novel and somehow and she doesn't even know how this happened. But she was, working on the novel in a like writers conference or something. And one of the women said, "Hey, this would make a really great screenplay." And she said, "Oh yeah." you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then she was contacted by a producer from someplace and they wanted to, convert her novel to a screenplay and, but she was gonna have to pay a whole bunch of money to do that, and she said, "Nah, I don't wanna do that," and so they offered to let her write the screenplay.
Wow.
And so she had a coach, a screenplay coach, and the producer, and it was like, and she's still shaking her head. She doesn't know how that happened, you
Yeah.
know? But, yeah, so something might happen. Who knows? You can never
Yeah,
tell.
you never know. You never
It's
know.
it's a
And
toss-up.
sometimes it comes and goes. As I write about in the book, I had several friends who were sort of on an upward trajectory and they were starting to get a lot of work and
Uh-huh.
beginning to establish themselves. And then it stops. So much of what happens is so arbitrary as
Yeah.
far as casting and who works at any given time.
Yeah.
I had people who were like famous for a year and then disappeared.
Yeah.
It's very unpredictable and quixotic that way.
Yeah. It is. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I decided I just didn't I was married when I got my master's in theater, and I just decided I didn't wanna do that professionally because I would never see my husband. 'Cause, Dave, my friend Dave, Dave Dahl, who, is the professional, theater professional, he was traveling all over the country, doing
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
directing or doing a dramaturgy or acting and it was like, no, I just didn't want to do that. So,
I took a gig on the road out of Hollywood once. I was on tour with a children's theater company
uh-huh,
for about 5 months. It was one of the longest gigs I had out
uh-huh.
of Hollywood. And we traveled all around the state from the
Oh, right.
Oregon border all the way down to San Isidro.
Oh,
We
wow.
played gigs everywhere throughout the state.
Yeah.
That was quite enjoyable. I really got a big kick out of that. Just being employed as an actor for 5 months was a thrill, no matter
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
And it was a goofy kids show, and I got to hear rooms full of kids laughing every day.
Oh, that is fun.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that is fun. That is really fun. Yeah.
Kids are a really good audience.
So how did you supplement your income?
With jobs, I have two entire chapters in the book devoted to jobs. I call them the jobs are like the biggest interference with my creative life.
Uh,
But, but yet I was very successful in the quote work world too.
uh-huh,
I had fairly decent management type jobs with various corporations and things.
uh-huh.
But to me, it's all an illusion, and none of it means anything. It's
Right.
just another role that I'm playing.
Right. Yeah.
So I had a lot of jobs of all kinds, and I can't really say that I cared for any of them too much, um, but I did them because you have to hang in there, and you
Yeah.
have to pay the rent, and you have to eat.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
So there were a few times, like with the Children's Theater Company, where I could make the leap, but for a shortened period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Be free, I'll be on this contract for 5 months, then I'll worry about it when the contract's over.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But that's the nature of acting as a career. Every single job comes to an end, whether it's a film
Right.
gig or a stage gig or whatever. There is no permanent, you know,
Right.
employment that way.
Working at it for 30 years and then
Right. You're
getting a call.
always auditioning. You're
Yeah.
always looking for the next job. It's a
Yeah.
permanent condition.
Is it more stable? I would think it maybe it's like being an actor. If you're working like as a set designer or a costume designer or just working the crew.
Oh, yes, something peripheral. It is
Yeah.
true that some people have navigated different jobs that way,
Uh-huh.
but
Uh-huh.
my experience has taught me that production people, crew people, and
Uh-huh.
set people, and they're concentrating on their discipline. So it's like there's the crew people all over here, and then there's
Right.
the performers, over here.
Right.
They all get cast, and then they come together and they work on the production.
Yeah.
Uh, but in fact, I once had a kind of a loser agent that I let represent me for a while, who was very good at getting on production lots. Once he took me over to Warner Brothers and
Uh-huh.
showed me he could get me on the West Wing set, and do all this and that. But he had no sway at all. He was just a hustler.
Yeah.
So I got on lots of sets and I met a lot of people, but if you're not inside and you're not there to work, they don't know who you are.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
you know, so
Oh, yeah.
that's the way I've pretty much thought about writing going forward. I've been having a bit of success as an actor, so I've kind of been thinking like, is when one dam breaks, the others tend to as well.
Right.
So acting is the
Mhm.
one that I can rely on.
Right.
So that's the road I'm still on.
Yeah, do you do any film work at all now?
Yes, yes, I do. In fact,
Oh.
I have a movie in the can that
Oh.
hasn't come out yet.
Oh.
I did a movie with Kyra Sedgwick,
Oh, yeah.
um, and Thora Birch.
Oh, yeah.
Um, it's called Thirsty, and I did it about a year and a half ago.
Uh-huh.
So I'm kind of waiting for it to be released. It's still in post production.
Oh my
So, and
goodness.
I had a nice part in it too.
Oh,
I'm looking
cool.
forward to it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's cool.
A few years ago, I did an episode of an NBC TV show called Trauma. It's shot in San
Oh,
Francisco,
right. Uh-huh.
and I got a nice little part in an episode of that show. That one was like a dream come true because I got to play a crazy person. That was one. That was one thing I'd always kind of secretly wanted to do. In the back of my head, I always thought, "Boy, that'd be fun to just play a total maniac." And then this one just drops into my lap.
Oh,
I just walked in and got it,
that's
and I
so
got to
cool.
play this kind of crazed street maniac.
Uh-huh.
Oh boy, I tell you, it was very satisfying.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I just finished watching Sugar, and it's like the whole Hollywood culture thing. I'm not sure I could do it.
That's why I wrote the book. You know, when I started, I didn't even know I was writing a book. I'm so used to screenplays and stage plays. I thought,
Uh-huh.
well, I can knock out a play,
Right.
about Hollywood. So I started writing, and it just didn't jibe. I was getting stuff down, but I couldn't really find a voice.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
said, well, maybe this isn't the screenplay. Maybe it's not a play. That's when I joined Prolific Writers Life.
Right. Yeah.
And just through the process of interacting with other writers, I found my voice.
Oh, that's cool.
So being with a group of other writers really helped to kickstart the process. And
Mhm.
as soon as I found what voice I was approaching the thing
Mhm.
with, then it really started to flow.
Yeah.
Um, and I ended up with a book.
Oh, man. I
And
love
I'm
it.
published, and it comes out this Friday on Amazon Books.
Oh, if right, May
The 24th, this
May
Friday.
24th. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
May 24th.
it
Oh,
comes out
cool.
on Amazon Books. Yeah.
Okay, so that's May 24th, 2024, because your episode is going to air in January of
Okay, well
2020.
then it will be already be out for quite some time.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
but I am actually going to put it up on Patreon and on my blog and that kind of thing
right.
too. So, yeah, but and I'll send people to watch those
Oh,
fun, fun uh commercials
yes,
for
that's
your
what they
book.
are. I still have a couple more that I'm working on right now.
Oh, wow.
Producing them right now. They're coming down the pike. So
Oh,
I
that's
get a
great.
good kick out of that. I really enjoy that.
Yes, really. Really. Now, you do have an internet movie database page too.
Yes, I do.
And I think I went and looked at that, but I didn't write anything down about it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, it's got all my credits. It's even got
yeah,
videos in there of gigs I've done.
yeah, and photos and yeah, that kind of thing. I have one for my podcast, but I haven't really done much with it yet, so I have to go. That's another thing I need help with. My husband's going to have to help me with, because I need to put, that he's helped me. I need to put him
Right.
as like, in my on my page. But yeah, and then I could put people like you and a couple of other people that I've talked to that are,
Right.
in the industry. Yeah, so that's cool. So the names of your plays. What are the names of your plays?
Okay. My first play was called In the Birdcage.
In the bird.
It was set in a bail bonds office,
Oh,
and it had a staged reading at a playhouse in Los Angeles when I was
huh?
living. I write about that staged reading in the book because it was disastrous. It was
Oh.
it. I mean, I've had good stage readings, and this one was not. It was,
Oh.
I had written this script for a select group of actors, and we had had a read through that went very well.
Uh-huh.
But for some reason, it, as I write in the book, I felt like I was Nero fiddling away during that production. Um, it just died. And so I learned a lesson from that one. Um, First of all, I don't think I had really, really polished the play.
Oh.
We're all so hungry to do something and get something
Yeah.
up. I think I neglected a little bit focusing on the writing. I
Mhm.
was so hungry to get a bunch of actors together and get us up there working. Um, but again, that was comedic too. There was all kinds of hilarious things about what a bad reading that one was. So I have a
Oh.
whole chapter in the book just devoted to that.
Well, the play taking place in a bail bond office reminds me of this play that we used to use a little scene from, or maybe it was like a really short one act play called DMV Tyrant. and and I think it was maybe a 10-minute little short little play. And so, yeah, that sounds fun. That sounds
Now,
really
then
fun.
I wrote a play called The Man Who Died Laughing,
Oh,
uh,
that one I
which,
know.
which I am still, to this day, I think it's viable. I really do. Um, that was the one that had the stage reading at Playhouse West. And again, that one really, really went over great. Um,
I love the title.
yeah, Man Who Died Laughing. Um, it was loosely sort of an homage to my late father. My
Mhm.
father was a stand-up comedian.
Oh.
He used to play the Village Vanguard clubs in New York and tour
Oh,
on the road with, we're talking like vaudeville.
wow.
He was one of the original stand-up comic guys,
Oh,
and he
wow.
did comedy reviews and things like that.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh. And you also said that he was on, what
Oh, he was in
LA
he was
LA
on L.A. Law, that show that was,
right.
and he
Yeah.
also is in the movie When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, yeah.
Father has a
I
nice little bit in that
I
movie too.
I have to say that's my mother-in-law's one of my mother-in-law's favorite movies, and I've never seen it. But
Really?
we did watch, my husband and I did watch LA Law. Yeah, so
Oh,
I
okay.
probably saw your dad.
Oh, you probably saw him. Oh, for sure. Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. He
Oh,
was
that's
one of
so
the
cool.
judges on
Yeah,
the bench.
that's
Yeah.
cool. That's really cool. Couldn't be too funny when he is playing a judge, I suppose.
Well, actually, no, there were a lot of laughs in those episodes.
My goodness, that was so long ago, I don't really remember. I just remember we liked that one, and, what was the one about the police? Uh, I can hear the music in my head, but they both came along kind of at the same time. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. I am actually throwing around some ideas in my head right now for another stage play.
Oh,
Since I finished the book,
mhm,
I'm sort of noodling around with an idea. I'm not quite sure where I'll get with it, but I like my core idea,
mhm,
which
mhm.
is about a playwright who's been doing it so long that he begins to confuse the characters in his play with the people in his actual life. So I thought, well, that's a good premise to start with.
Oh,
You
really?
know, he's like a little bit old, he's fading a little bit alcoholic, you know.
Uh-huh.
So he's just a guy who's just not fully uh, in the present, if you will. And he's
Yes.
being a writer who's always consumed with his ideas. He doesn't remember whether it's his real wife or a wife that he wrote in a play. Um, so, and they come walking in and out at various times. So
Right.
that's kind of like my thumbnail sketch of the one that I'm
Oh,
brainstorming on
that
right
sounds fun. Well, my husband and I watched American, Fiction last night,
now. Well, that was really good.
and we loved it. And when he decides he's gonna sit down and write his, fakey novel,
Right.
and he's talking to I said, "That's like the man who invented Christmas. Dickens is talking to his characters." And, you know,
That
uh
was a very good script in that movie. I
it
thought it was
was,
very well
yeah.
done.
So that was really fun, especially when the characters stop and look at him and say, "Now, what am I supposed to say next?" Oh,
It was kind of refreshing to see a movie about a writer. Every
yeah.
once in a while there's a movie about writing or about
Yes.
writers, and so
Yeah.
that one really got me
Yeah,
good. Yeah,
it was fun. It was so fun. And I love that he turned it into a screenplay and then they had to come up with the ending on the spot. And of course, the one that the guy loved was the most violent.
right, right.
So funny. But yeah, I'm not usually really enamored of the Oscar nominated movies, especially if it's
Yeah.
like, what's the one? Old Something Old Men. It's like all these violent movies, but
Yeah.
this year they did a lot of really great,
Mhm.
because I really like The Holdovers too.
Yeah, that was an interesting little flick.
Yeah,
It had
it
a lot
was.
of quirky characters and interesting
Yeah.
situations in it. I like that. I like small stories about people
Mhm.
that elicit something about human nature.
Yeah. Well, the thing I liked about The Holdovers, it kind of reminded me of a British play that Timothy Spall is in, and it's these wounded people coming together and helping each other heal.
Mhm.
I just kind of like that.
Yeah, yeah.
People who they're not perfect and they have problems, but they're helping each other out,
Mhm.
kind of. So that's what I really liked about The Holdovers. And yeah. Wow.
Writing a screenplay is very different than writing a stage play for me.
Oh,
Because oh yeah, it's a very different process. With screenplay, you have to realize that everything is a shot. The
right.
camera doesn't go away.
Right.
So in a screenplay, you have a shot, you have a location, you have a
Yeah.
description of what's happening in the scene.
Right.
Then you have the dialogue of the characters in the scene.
Yeah.
Um, so you always have to be conscious of place, angle, what shot is this
Yeah.
happening from?
Shot length and
While
stuff.
with a play, it's just set, location, characters, here they
Right.
go. Um,
Maybe that's why when I took playwriting, when I was getting my master's, I wasn't very successful at it because when I was a kid, that we had, movie night and we would talk about the movies. And so I was so used to that, visual language of the movies. You don't need that so much in stage plays.
well, that in a way makes stage play writing more difficult because you can't have downtime. In a movie, you can have a long shot, or you can have something that's zooming out and pulling away, or you can have a slow paced scene and then suddenly some
Yeah.
event comes along. But
Can't do that.
in a stage play, it's all happening live right in front of you.
Right.
So there can't be one dull moment.
Right.
It has
Yes.
to flow and has to engage you live.
That's right.
Um, in a way, I enjoy both of them tremendously because they're so different. When I'm working on a screenplay, I'm thinking like a movie camera. When I'm working on a stage play, I'm thinking purely about, well, first of all, you only have a stage. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah.
You can move set pieces around, but you really have to concentrate on your characters. Um,
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, I didn't think of that.
yeah.
Because someone said, "Oh, you should start writing plays." And I'm like, I took 2 or 3 playwriting classes and I wasn't very good at it.
Well, I admire the hell out of people like David Mamet who
Oh,
just
really?
produce and produce. I mean, my God,
Or
and
Sam.
very complex, detailed
Yeah.
uh, works involving
Yeah.
intricate characters and beats and moments.
Yeah.
Um, I admire that tremendously.
Yes.
Also, I once did a scene from Glengarry Glen Ross in one of my
Uh-huh.
rehearsal groups, and I write about that process in the book too.
Mhm.
The process of just rehearsing a mammoth scene
Mhm.
being directed by my coach. It was a quite an actor's experience. I would recommend that for any actor.
Mhm.
Take a difficult piece, challenge yourself. Get a hard scene, one that
Yeah.
requires a lot of work, and then
Yeah.
get a very good director to work with you.
Mhm. Mhm.
Nothing teaches you more about acting than that. The
Yeah.
process of diving right in there with your body and your mind and
Yeah.
occupying that space.
Yeah, and I was really glad when I started working with team teaching with Dave because he had all these techniques to help the students and he picked some really hard things
Yeah.
for them to do, which that was great because, my master's program was way long time ago. In the
Mhm.
80s, I graduated, I think, in 86. And I hadn't really kept up with reading plays and things, but he knew and he had playwright friends and, that kind of thing. So he brought in all this new material and some of it was really difficult, but he knew how to help the students.
I attended American Conservatory Theater's actors training program.
Uh-huh.
I won a scholarship years ago out of high school, and I
Mhm.
trained. There was a very intensive actors training,
Mhm.
every
Mhm.
facet you can imagine, from period movement. There were
Right.
classes in period movement. This is how people moved in the king's court. You don't turn your back on the queen. You bow
Mhm.
as the person, things like that. Uh,
Right.
to elocution, articulation,
Right.
ways that people spoke in history.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
we had to do Shakespearean scene study, which is some of the hardest work you can do.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's an essential part of any actor's education.
Yeah.
You
It
have to
is, yeah.
challenge yourself to do things that are difficult.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's how I met Dave was I decided I was going to direct Measure for Measure. I'd never directed a
Boy,
Shakespeare. What was I thinking? I'd never directed a Shakespeare before. But he came along and he said, "Oh, I've done that play 7 times as a director and an actor and I'll help." And so he had a cut down version of it, but I didn't know quite how to do this, but I wanted it to be active instead of just standing there and saying the lines like some
right,
productions do.
right.
And so he knew how to help the actors come alive with what they were the movements you know, it turned out really great. That's when I
I,
started.
I once saw a production of Love's Labour's Lost
Uh-huh.
done at the Ashland Shakespeare
Oh
Festival in
yeah.
Oregon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was so magnificent. I was just blown away. The actors understood the Shakespearean dialogue so well that they communicated the meaning of every
Mhm.
word so clearly in their movement and in their speech. It was stunning.
Yeah.
What a brilliantly executed production
Yeah. Well,
that
that's what
really
Dave
was.
helped me do, and he has taken several, uh, I think he's working on his 3rd or 4th now where he's kind of adapting it. Like he was getting his master's while he was team teaching with me, and his master's project was Midsummer Night's Dream,
Mhm.
and he set it in Haight Ashbury in the 60s, and the fairies are smoking pot, and the music was, from that
Rock,
era,
right.
and the fight between Helena and what's the other woman's name? Hermia was I mean, it was like she was jumping and the guys were grabbing her so she couldn't get to the I mean,
Yeah.
it was so fun. And then, he did Twelfth Night. We
Mhm.
did Twelfth Night as, at the Christmas time, and the little college where we taught doesn't have a theater in the main campus. It has several different campuses, but the main campus now is in Sierra Vista, north of where I live, and, the original campus had a little theater in Douglas, but they opted not to spend the money for the little theater, so we just used they had this big walkthrough in the library that they called the Library Commons, and that's where we performed it, and it turned out great. And he
Mhm.
did the same kind of thing, had this really interesting Christmas music and other music and, helped the students use their facial expressions and the way they're looking at each other and to convey what the words mean.
I feel very lucky in that I've had some great coaches over my
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
I have to give them a whole lot of credit. Having a really sensitive and involved acting coach,
Mhm.
so helpful,
Yes.
so helpful. Like when I was rehearsing that mammoth scene,
Uh-huh.
it was in a workshop taught by a guy named Alan Garfield.
Uh-huh.
He was a character actor. You've probably seen him. He was in tons of movies in the 70s. Um, well, he's the one that guided me through the mammoth scene.
Oh.
And he's the one that kind of taught me how to get past the vernacular of the writing
Mhm.
and to get some flow going when you understand the idea behind the thrust of what the scene is about.
Mhm.
When you understand that, the dialogue and everything will fit and will flow correctly.
Right.
You have to just understand what it is that the character
Yeah.
is trying to
Well,
get across.
yeah, I mean, I used to tell my acting students that the actor's job is to get the audience to feel something, but you have to understand what the emotions are first.
You have to.
You have
That's
to.
why that production I saw in Ashland was so brilliant. Every
Yeah.
actor understood every word they were saying,
Mhm.
and their actions and their motivations were crystal clear.
Yeah. I have a I love this production that I saw when I was in undergraduate, and it took place. It's of Taming of the Shrew, and
Mhm.
it was done in San Francisco. And Mark Singer plays Petruchio, and he's one of my. I like him a lot. And it was that same thing. There were these times where the characters would pause, and you could see what was going on in their heads, and they would emphasize this little moment that was so important. I just hit my mic. Sorry. And that's the kind of thing that you must have
Yeah.
experienced when you went to Ashland.
Yeah. When you feel the energy coming off the stage,
Yeah.
you feel very much in communion with the actors up there. They're drawing you into
Yes.
the story.
Into the
And
story, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, that's what any effective art is.
Right.
I'm Mr. Picky because I know all about movie making and I've been in movies and stuff.
Yeah.
Yet, my favorite experience at the movies is when I forget every bit of all of that and I'm
Yes.
just completely consumed in the story that I'm watching. I'm not
Right.
thinking about editing or photography
Right.
or anything. I'm just completely absorbed in the
The
story
story.
and the
Right.
characters.
Yeah.
That's the goal of any good movie or play or anything,
All right.
is
Or
to
a
make the
book.
walls fall away and
Yeah.
get you completely involved
Right.
in emotions and the characters.
Right. Books are like that too. I mean, try to read books that are by my, podcast guests. And I just finished one. And granted, she was 16 when she wrote it and published it. It had a great story, but she's using modern vernacular and it's set sort of in like a medieval. And after a while, that was a little bit tiring, but I thought, you know what? She was 16. It's a
Yeah.
fantasy book. She's going to continue to write. She's going to get better at it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but that kind of took me out of the story sometimes.
Look,
Uh,
I had to write some bad plays in order to write some good plays.
that's right. Exactly.
Every actor's given a horrible performance at some point in their
Oh,
life.
yeah.
Every
Uh-huh.
writer's written a dud at some point.
Yeah.
It comes with the territory.
Yeah.
It's part of your sort of workout, if you will,
Right. Yeah.
um, to keep you competent.
It's that how many hours is it? You do 10,000 hours or something before you can become become proficient at what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta write, or you have to act, or
Mhm.
whatever it is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yes, that's my goal too when I'm watching a movie is, because I'm always a lot of times I'm thinking about what the characters are thinking and what are they gonna do next, and but if I forget all that.
That's when you know you've really hit the
Yeah,
stuff.
when they
And
did.
I love it too because I'm a movie fan just like everybody else.
Yeah, right.
So this is something pretty remarkable about having that experience. All you're doing is sitting there in a darkened room, looking at a bunch of pictures
Right.
flashed up on the wall, and it can affect your deepest emotions
I know.
on
So,
every level.
yeah, some of the best aha moments I've had is when I'm watching a movie or when I'm watching a play.
Mhm.
Like, "Oh, wow, I never thought of that before," or "I never felt that before."
I also I recently I've started rewriting a screenplay that I wrote a lot of years ago,
Uh-huh.
15, 20 years ago. I reread it and I still think it's good and I still think my core idea is good, but it
Uh-huh.
needs to be polished.
Yeah.
I think I can make it better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I feel about my first novel. It could be polished, but because I didn't take creative writing, at all, in my double major BA. But or even when I got my master's, I took playwriting, but I didn't take, creative writing. And so now this second book, I want to, make sure it's polished up and yeah.
The industry standard for the greatest book ever written about screenplay writing,
Uh-huh.
Ventures in the Screen Trade by William Goldman. He was a famous
Oh, I love him.
screenwriter. He wrote the screenplay
Yeah.
Butch
Princess
Cassidy, Sundance Kid, and
Princess Bride.
oh yeah, he wrote.
Yeah.
He was a magnificent
Yeah.
writer.
Uh-huh.
But that was reading his book, Adventures in the Screen Trade, is what actually gave me the impetus to attempt my first screenplay
Ah.
because he makes it such an
Yeah.
exciting process,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and he talks about it uh, in such a revelatory fashion. I highly recommend that book.
Oh, I might have to read that book, even though I'm not planning on writing a screenplay, but just for
No,
the
it's
fun of
very
it.
entertaining anyway. It
Excuse
feels a
me.
lot.
Yeah, right. It's fun. Yeah. Well, I loved his novelization of The Princess Bride. I was laughing out loud at that one.
Oh, Magic! Do you remember that's movie Magic?
Oh,
That
did he write that too?
Anthony Hopkins with yeah. It was sort of a thriller, kind of a dark story about this
Oh, that sounds familiar.
magician who's also a ventriloquist.
Oh,
Yeah, that was a. I miss William Goldman. He was really
I know.
just just one of the best screenwriters I think
Yeah.
in American film history.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have a nephew who wants to be he wants to work in the film industry as a director, I think.
Mhm.
And we were just sitting down. My mom died recently. And so Barry and I were up in the Seattle area staying with them and going through her stuff. And so but we took a break and we were watching Turner Classic Movies. And this, one of those little shorts that they have came on. And it was about, um, Marlena Dietrich, I think. And he said, "Oh wow, that shot right there of the flowers and we're like, what are you talking about?" He was like, "Oh man, that is so cool. Go back. I want to see that again." So, my sister rewound it so he could see that shot
Mhm.
again. And he's what? He's 16. So he's already watching all these.
I do that myself when I'm watching a movie that I think is really great, and
Mhm.
there'll be some moment, just like an actor's moment, I'll
Yes.
do that. I'll rewind. I'll go, wow, look at the way she played that beat. Look at the way she said
Yeah.
that. Wow, that was
Right.
really something.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I just started watching these videos by it's the YouTube channel is called Cinema Therapy, and it's a filmmaker and a therapist, and they've been friends for years. And so they were talking about Ted Lasso. That's how I got hooked on them. But they're talking about that little scene. Have you seen Ted Lasso?
no, I've heard about it, but I
Oh
haven't.
man. So there's this it's 3 seasons. That's it. That's going to be all there is. But at the end of the first season, the owner of the soccer football team uh confesses to Ted Lasso that she because he's an American football coach, American football. And but she confesses it to him that she hired him because she wanted to get back at her ex-husband and she wanted the franchise to fail, the team to fail. And they were examining his face as she's telling him this. And it's like all these emotions, anger, disappointment. And then, oh yeah, I kind of get that. He comes to this, oh yeah, I get that. And he goes up to her and he says, I forgive you. And it was like all these emotions playing on his face, as she's
That's
telling him.
great. I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
That reminds me of that famous scene in The Godfather when Michael Corleone is in a restaurant. He's going to kill these
Right.
two
Yeah.
people. And
Uh-huh.
there's this one long, slow shot
Uh,
coming up on his face, and you see every emotion
mhm.
going through his mind before he's going to do this thing. Like he's afraid, he has to do it. Maybe he shouldn't. You see this
Right.
whole internal dialogue roiling inside his head.
Right.
And
Yeah.
all the camera's doing is just slowly zooming in on his face and
Right.
all that torrent of emotion.
Yeah.
And there's no dialogue even happening in that
Right.
moment. It's
Right.
incredible.
Yeah. I've never seen that movie, but I have seen that particular scene, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah. And that's one thing that's a little harder, I think, on stage because some of that audience is
Yes.
way, way in the back.
Yes.
And
Certain
can't
things you can't get away with on stage.
Yeah, so I told my students, sometimes it's in your body language and you have to make your body language bigger. The
Yeah.
first play that I ever directed, full length play was Our Town when I was teaching high school.
Oh, our
And
town, yeah.
and the guy that was supposed to be crying on what's his name? That his wife's name is Emily, and he's crying on her grave, and he goes, "I can't cry." And I said, "It's okay. Just put your hands like this with your face down, and just move your shoulders up and down." And when he did that, some of the girls, we only had a few in the rehearsal, a few other actors in the rehearsal, and the girls go, "Oh my gosh, I'm crying. It looks so good." was like, I don't know how I came up with that, but
It did
yeah,
the trick, right?
yeah, it did. It did. Because the audience even got into that moment, when we were performing it. So I don't know how I came up with that, but so yeah, the acting on stage is different than acting in a film.
Also, acting on stage is quite taxing. I mean,
Yes.
more so than film, because
Yeah.
you're up there giving a full workout every night.
Right.
Film is all sporadic, shot in little pieces, little
Mhm.
bits, and put together later. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, stage acting can be very tiring. When I've finished a run in a show, I'm usually
Yeah.
pretty worn out for a
Yeah,
while.
I mean, I did semi-professional theater in Portland, Oregon when I got my right after I got my master's. And we only had 6 weeks run.
Mhm,
But if you have a really long run and it was only like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
mhm.
We didn't have, every night except for Monday. But yeah, I kind of understand that. I don't know
I had
how.
schedules like that when I was working a full-time job. I would
Uh-huh.
work my full-time job in the city,
Mhm.
go to rehearsal at night, grab something for
Yep.
dinner, go into a performance cycle Thursday through Sunday, and then
Yeah.
go right back to my work job on Monday.
Yeah.
How I did it, but I did it like
I
that
know.
several times.
Yeah, well, and that's when I kind of decided that I needed to not do theater like that anymore because Barry would come home from work. We'd have maybe half an hour or 45 minutes to eat dinner together. And then I'd be off to rehearsal. And then I'd go home at I'd get home about 11:30. He'd be in bed already asleep. He'd kiss me goodbye at 7 in the morning. And I said, "We never see each other."
Yeah.
It's I don't know how theater people maintain relationships.
Well, I haven't. So I'm still unmarried. I think it probably has a lot to do with my career
Yeah.
because you're flying someplace at a moment's notice or you're
Yeah.
in rehearsal all the time.
Yeah.
I once had a girlfriend I remember who actually said, I'm getting kind of tired. I mean, you're always in rehearsal. And
Yeah.
I had to kind of smooth it out a little bit. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm an actor.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I do.
It's really demanding. And so I get a little ticked off when people goes, "Well, it's not rocket science." Well, no, it's not. It's delving into the human emotions, which
Yeah.
is
And it's a
really
whole lot of
important.
work.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It's a different kind of work,
Mhm.
but it's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
And, they pass, uh, you know, the viewer critics, "Oh, that was so terrible." Well, you don't understand acting. You know? Have you
I
ever
forget who
tried it?
said it, but I don't know, it might have been Mel Brooks or somebody. Like, you have to be willing to fail.
Right.
You have to understand. I mean, not everything can be a hit. You
Right.
give it your best. And oops, oh well, that one tanked. You
Yeah.
know, you're,
Right.
you're gonna have some duds. It just comes with the territory.
Right.
But you give it your best every time. And then there's always another gig. There's always
That's
another
right.
job to do.
That's right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Even
Exactly.
famous actors, almost every famous actor has one movie that they'd rather not talk about,
George
Got
Clooney
Matt
brings
Damon or George Clooney. Yeah,
George
any of them.
Clooney brings up Batman all the
Right.
Oh, yeah. Some of them try not to bring him up, but he
Right.
it's right out there. "Oh, Batman, that was so terrible."
Right. I hope I never see that one again. Yeah.
Actually, I kinda liked it, but but, yeah. If you don't also, if you can't mesh with the character or if you don't mesh with your fellow actors or the director, that's also a factor.
Yeah. Yeah. Being in a movie that's no good is not really that big a deal because they come and go.
Right.
Being no good on stage is different because you're doing it live every night.
Right.
Um, so no, but I've been very fortunate. I really got to say, I've been very lucky in that it's probably 85-90% of all the theater
Mhm.
stuff I've done has been really rewarding, very successful, really enjoyable.
Uh-huh.
And a
Mhm.
few couple of turkeys, but
Yeah.
nothing to speak of.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel very lucky in that I've had so many
Yeah.
really rewarding group experiences in theater.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I was really glad when I got to teach it because it was sort of like the best of both worlds, because when I'm teaching high school or college, the rehearsals don't have to be at night, really late at night, you know?
Right.
So, that was the best. Although, um, I did sometimes I kinda missed it a little bit, but directing was fun. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'm an actor writer, right?
Yeah.
You talking about directing. I don't want to direct. You know that joke, everybody wants to direct. Oh,
Yeah.
you're an actor, yeah, but you really want to direct. No, I don't. In fact, I prefer to be under the direction of a real professional.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you better.
Yeah.
Working with a really good director who knows how to elicit what they need out of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's really thrilling.
Yeah.
I find it very exciting to challenge yourself to deliver what a given director wants because it's hard.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
It is.
uh,
So yeah, do you have anything else you want to say? Because you're right, directing is hard, and I would not want to do it for a movie because you
mhm.
got all of the, oh man, there's way more than theater.
Well, the fun part that I sort of enjoy about doing film or TV is you walk onto a set and you're usually meeting the director right away. So it's it's fun. It's exciting. Oh, hello, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Introducing yourself to a new crew, new director,
Yeah.
and be open to whatever it is they're going to throw at you.
Yeah.
Um, I this movie that I have in the can, Thirsty. My gut thinks it's going to be a pretty good movie. I read the script and it was good,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and I have a nice little part in there. Um, so I hope they get it together and release it soon.
Yes.
Maybe that'll help my book sales.
Yes. Well, I hope they do too, because I had one of my acting students also, goes to Tucson and takes acting classes and, you know, and he was in a movie that they filmed in Tombstone, I think.
Yeah.
And well, it was a Western. And and some of it I think was also at the Tucson, what do you call it? Old Tucson Studios. And they never released the movie. And he had a fairly large part. And it was like, oh, bummer. I wonder how that happens, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, a movie that I did a little while ago was called Paradise Club.
Uh-huh.
And I had a nice little part in there. I play this kind of sleazy guy who's in the strip club all
Mm-hmm.
the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the thing is, that sat in the can for over 2 years. And then one morning it popped up on Amazon Video.
Oh,
And now it's released on Amazon Video.
oh wow.
And that's fine. That's fine with me.
Yeah. What's it
It
called
shows up
again?
anywhere.
Paradise.
Paradise Club, it's called.
Paradise Club. I'll have to
Yeah.
go look at that.
I wouldn't really recommend it. It's not the best movie. But I had, some action in it. So,
And you got paid.
and I got paid. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that's the cool thing. You get paid.
Well, sometimes they ask actors, why come you did that lousy movie? You're doing, I mean, hey, there's working and then there's not working. So,
That's right.
the more you work, the better off
Yeah.
they are.
Well, and I've seen, like, James, we watched Stargate the other night, and I was reading the trivia on any Internet Movie Database, and he did that movie because he needed the money. You know,
Uh-huh.
but I always liked his character. I thought he did a really great job. But I just did it for the money.
Oh,
And
yeah. I remember hearing that from my idol, Gene Hackman.
oh
He
right,
was in the Poseidon Adventure all those years ago, and I thought, wow,
yeah,
he's great. And then I saw this interview with him. He said, well, I needed money at the time. Oh, no, don't say that. I
yeah.
love that. It was great.
Yeah. Well, what James Spader said was, when you sign on to do the work, you got to do the work.
Do the work.
I mean, yeah, I took it because I needed the money, but you got to do the work,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is true. Yeah. If you're gonna, if they hire you, you got to do the work.
There's few places I love more than a live set, a movie set. I just love
Oh,
it.
uh huh.
It's just kind of noisy, and there's people running all over the place, and there's cable everywhere on the floor,
Right.
and
Uh huh.
there's just sort of this sense of controlled mayhem
Uh huh.
that I really, really enjoy. I feel really alive whenever I get a chance to work in film.
Oh, that's
I'm hoping
cool.
maybe some of that more of that's coming down the pipe.
Oh, yeah, that would be
I mean,
nice.
even this book, my ultimate goal is to get more acting work out of
That's
it.
right.
You know, I
Right.
would like people to read it and enjoy it, but I would also like a little more action. Thank you very
That's
much.
yeah, right, exactly. Oh my gosh, this has been so fun, and we've talked for a long time. I wanna know if you
Yes.
have anything else you wanna say before we say goodbye.
Well, let's see. You know the old question about, do you have any advice that you would give struggling actors? Yeah, the one piece of advice that I would have is enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, get lost. What are
Right.
you doing there?
Yeah.
You have to bring joy and love and excitement and to the process.
Right.
Nobody's going to do that for you.
That's
You have
right.
to bring that, you know?
Yeah, well, you have to bring that to anything that you do. And,
Right.
yeah, I think that's why I stopped doing theater even though I loved it. I didn't like not being with my husband.
Right.
And so that was the one deal breaker. And so teaching it, I got to go back to my love of theater, but, I didn't have to sacrifice my relationship
Right.
with it.
Right.
But, that's how I feel about podcasting. I love doing it. I just love doing
Yeah.
it. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. Maybe you're a really great auto mechanic and you love fixing up old cars. If you love that,
Absolutely. I
that's
mean, my
great.
best doctors, for example, I can tell they love what they do. They
Mhm.
want to do medicine and they want to do it really well. So
Yeah.
bring your love, bring your best to it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
have fun, enjoy yourself because it's not going to last. It's only happening between the takes, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
so yeah,
Exactly.
love it to death. That's
Yeah.
my advice.
Really. Good. I love that. Yeah, I wasn't asking it for you to necessarily give advice, but I love that. I love that advice. So,
Well,
yeah.
great. Well,
Yeah.
I listened. Great to meet you. I've really enjoyed talking to you about
M
this stuff.
Me too. I've enjoyed it too, and it is good to meet you, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. No problem. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Hello, Story Power listeners. I have a little announcement for you that I think you might be interested in since you love stories so much. And it is that my sister Celeste and I are starting a new YouTube channel called Classic Cinema with the Sage Sisters. Now, we're starting this channel because we grew up watching and discussing classic movies with our family. And when we got to be older and Turner Classic Movies was invented, we just went back and watched all those movies and more, and just loved talking about them with each other. Uh, Classic movies could be any movie that is 20 years old or older. And so, what we are going to do is take one movie per episode and analyze it, talk about it. And the first one we're going to be talking about is Love with the Proper Stranger with Steve McQueen and Natalie Wood. I think it's from 1963. And so, if you want to tune into that, hopefully it's going to be airing on February 5th. And I am going to create the channel, have a couple of trailers there to explain what we're doing. But if you love classic movies or just movies in general, come join us because we love talking about movies and we would love to create a community of people who are not only enjoying the movies for entertainment purposes, but also are learning from them and looking at them with a new eye to what's going on now. Because sometimes movies kind of foretell what's going to happen in the future. So please come join us. I'm very excited that we're starting this channel, and I hope to see you there. hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and give us a rating and/or review on your favorite podcast app. It will help people find us. I invite you to join my Patreon community at patreon.com/storypower, all one word. Or if you like, you can subscribe to Story Power on Apple Podcasts. It's my aim to build a community where we discuss the stories we love and talk about what we learned from them. I offer extra audio content and story suggestions to my patrons on both platforms. Remember, as Philip Pullman said, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Let's spread the story love. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.